Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Allow me to introduce myself, Paul Wyden from the Red Hat APAC team, and I'll be your host and referee for today's anticipated matchup. Before we get started, let's go over some housekeeping. Now, you, the audience, will be playing the most important role as the judges for today's big bout. The scoring criteria is not who has the best hair, but we recommend taking into account the challenges you are currently facing and the relevance of the arguments that you will hear today, how it's relevant to your role. We'll be doing live polling with the results updating in real time on your screen. So let's do a warm up to get started. You can see there's a question. What proportion of your applications might you modernize versus rebuild? To participate, scan the QR code or click the link in the comment box. While you're responding, I'll go over some of the other rules for today's bout. If you have any questions that you'd like the contestants to answer, please type them into the comments box and we'll answer them during the Q&A round. Today's debate will be contested over 3 rounds, 1 round to each of the contestants to argue their case, and then if needed, a tiebreaker round before we go to the judges' scorecards. Speaking of judging, the results from the first poll are in. Let's take a look. So it looks like it's 50-50. We don't have a clear favorite here, and the results are updating in real time. I think we're going to have to move on to the bout to decide who the winner is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the main event of today to answer the age-old debate for IT professionals. When it comes to applications, is it better to modernize or to rebuild? Let's meet our contestants. Introducing first, in the red corner, a grizzled veteran with 35 years experience dealing with application services and middleware across the APAC region. He's seen it all, from the migration downfalls, modernization misfires, to the custom rebuilt pillars that companies hold proud. Fighting out of Australia by way of Jakarta, Indonesia, the man arguing that yes, app modernization is a complete waste of time. Please welcome David, the Destroyer, Forden. And his opponent in the blue corner, also a seasoned veteran with more than 20 years experience focusing on the APAC markets. He's been working with customers to adopt middleware technologies and to modernize along with changing business needs. Fighting out of Singapore, arguing that modernization is not a waste of time. Please welcome Leong, King Khong. Gentlemen, we've gone over the rules in the dressing room. Protect yourself at all times and only speak when it's your turn. Touch gloves, good. Now back to your corners. To throw the first punch, we have David the Destroyer to argue why app modernization is a waste of time. A better approach is to rebuild from the ground up. Are you ready, David? Let's get it on.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So hi, everyone. I'm here to state that case, and I believe that apps modernization is a complete waste of time and money. I'm going to really dig into the meat of this topic, and I'm not going to pull any punches. I'll convince you all of this fact easily. So the best way to address modernization is effectively to trash old applications and rebuild them. Technical debt is really a developer dream killer. So here's a 3-punch combo to kind of prove that. So modernization of legacy, really very rarely works because the older architecture apps have massive technical debt, and very little of the existing logic can practically be reused. The best devs don't want to work on it anyway, so you won't get a good result no matter how hard you try. Second thing is that modernization is more expensive and slower than rebuild, and it also creates a lost opportunity. So that is the business value in terms of revenue or savings, and that happens due to the time spent on realizing new features. And this actually kills a company's opportunity and speed to market. So you can be guaranteed that the smart competitor out there is rebuilding. They're not modernizing. No way. The other thing is that high velocity industries, right? So this is the third thing. They're moving too fast to waste time on modernization, and with the advances in apps, tech, processes, techniques, and technologies, it now makes more sense than ever just to get over it, trash the old stuff, and rebuild the new. And the reason to do that is for improved competitive advantage, more cost savings, plus faster and higher ROI. So it's not just modernization that contributes to the costs and so on. It's actually the review and evaluation phase as well. So this is where the consultants are paid big bucks to come in and crawl all over you, advising you about their 6Rs, rehost, replatform, refactor, retain, and retire or whatever. And, they talk the same old boring language and they charge ridiculous rates. And, to give you this advice or whatever, and the costs that, come from that, actually you can totally avoid them by just trashing and rebuilding. So you can actually build whole new applications with the money that you think you're going to spend on those consultants anyway. So most legacy apps are actually built by ISVs. And the problem with that is that, the company often doesn't actually own the source code. So even if they can get access to the ISV, they'll likely be held hostage and engaged in an expensive exercise to add or change functionality. Even if they do own the source code, who knows what horrors await them in there? Multiple generations of, so-called modernization. And, at the end of the day, probably a whole lot of spaghetti code. So, how can you expect to, modernize an agile and efficient application out of that? And, just modifying apps like that is mortifying. So why would you be crazy enough and expect any business advantage out of it? So, to me, modernizing legacy apps is actually throwing good money after bad. It's like a casino gambler's habit. Old apps rely on old libraries, old versions of components that are, often no longer supported. They're too expensive and even impossible to replace, and simply really can't be adopted to cloud-native applications approaches to gain any really clear benefit. So I'd put it to you that, the most sensible approach really at the end of the day is just rebuild. Rebuild, you get the opportunity to really revisit the whole business model. You get the opportunity to think about what's going into that application and really start deriving new business benefits out of it before you make a silly decision to just kind of modernize something that's been around that everyone's hated forever. So that would be my take on things, and hopefully Leong's got a decent response to that.
That's time. Wow, what an action-packed round. Some great blows in there that would have felled a lesser opponent. But app modernization is a resilient foe, so time for the blue corner to respond. Leong, King Khong, you support app modernization, not rebuilding. Are you ready, Leong? Fight!
David, are you assuming a limited budget you can spend on rebuilding? Come on, that's not going to happen. Right? Where did the money come from? It doesn't drop from the sky. Right? So my suggestion is different. Right? Modernization is a journey. Right? Look at it this way. Right? What do we advocate most of the time? Right? We advocate that customers relook at their applications. Right? Pick the right application for modernization. Right? A modernization includes many different things, right? But one of the key things here is to look at re-platform, re-host onto an open and cheaper platform, right? What that gives you is a cost savings, right? The cost saving from an operation on maintaining cost perspective, right? And then from a cost saving, you can reinvest the money to start rebuilding or building part of the application on a newer platform. That's the whole idea of modernization. You're not going to just throw away the old application and rebuild, right? Imagine the number of years the team has operated the existing application, the developer that has been working on the application. Well, they have all the knowledge in them, right? And then imagine, right, the number of years the business is given requirement to build the application itself. That's not going to happen, right? They're not going to just go and sit down with you for a couple of months just to rebuild the application. Come on, be realistic on that, right? So the key thing here is this, right? Take the cost savings that when you re-platform to an open platform, when you re-platform to a lower cost platform, right? So take the cost out, right? Reinvest into modernization, right? And look into incremental steps, right? So what I always advocate is this, right? You're not going to throw away all the business logic or the skill set or the knowledge that you acquired all these years, right? You're going to do it in a different way. You're going to do it in two steps of it, right? Using API-driven development, right? Using all the new DevOps tooling if needed, right? The first is to assess, right? What application are you planning to modernize, right? Pick the right one. Look at entanglements, right? I know David talked about spaghetti codes. Come on, right? You can't be that bad, right? Look at the entanglement of the application itself, right? And then you look at migrating modules by module up from the existing proprietary platform into open platform itself, right? Right. Establish the software migration factory, right? That's where, you have a small team focused on migrating bits and pieces out of it. And there are parts that you might need to rebuild. I can't say everything can be reused. Some part of it need to rebuild. Then you rebuild, right? Rebuild using the new development method that what David has talking about, right? Two pizza team, right? on the DevOps platform, on the container platform. You can rebuild parts of it. And how do you actually cater for changes as well, right? It's actually, look at the new requirement and build this new requirement based on the new development methods on the new platform itself. So my suggestion is this, right? Don't forget about the amount of time your team has invested, the business user development team. So you're going to do it in the journey manner, right? So first and foremost, right, lift and shift to open platform, take the cost saving from there, reinvest and start looking at modernizing, rebuilding part of the application itself. This is going to be a journey, and the journey doesn't stop until you finish modernizing the application itself.
Break it up, break it up. Wow, what a fight, what a debate. The crowd is on their feet. David landed first with ROI and consulting costs and had his opponent on the ropes with arguments about spaghetti code and technical debt. But Leong recovered and countered with the challenges in getting budget and talking about institutional knowledge and applying the strangler pattern approach. I think we need a tiebreaker round. For this, each contestant will get 1 minute each to try and land their knockout blow. David, are you ready to give your final arguments? Ready?
Yeah, sure.
Fight.
Right, so knockout blow, 1 minute. Here comes the knockout. Modernization is actually a double whammy. So what you assume will be easy in the start, it gets harder and more costly and turns into a nightmare. And this actually becomes pretty impossible to explain to the business. To add insult to injury, the so-called modernized application has exactly the same old rubbishy look and feel. Maybe a couple of new features have been added that'll never actually work very optimally anyway. And the business actually is going to blame you. They're going to hate you for this. So, rehosting, replatforming, and refactoring, they're just really thinly disguised ways of procrastinating a rebuild, which is really what needs to happen in most cases. They deliver the same application on maybe a slightly better platform with minimal benefits. Maybe it'll scale a little bit better if you're lucky. These types of apps are just not designed to exploit the capabilities of new platforms, and they never will be. Rebuild is almost always what's really needed. So just forget the other 5 R's. They're not relevant. There's a 6th R, 7th R for you. So stop procrastinating. Use the IT budget wisely to rebuild applications.
That's enough. Wrap it up there, David. Wrap it up.
Okay.
Cool.
How about I wrap it up now?
Wow, that was a tough round there. Here's your final chance to land a knockout blow. You have 1 minute. Are you ready? Fight.
IT budget wisely. If you have incremental, if you have excess, where did the budget come from? Doesn't fall from the sky, right? So my suggestion, like what I suggested, is take the cost saving from replatform, rehosting, onto a lower cost open platform. Take the saving from there and reinvest into establishing the software migration factory, right? Looking at migrating parts and parcel, bits and pieces of the application, right, on the incremental journey itself. Rebuild part of it if needed, right? The new requirements that comes in from the business perspective, you can always use the new way of building those new requirements itself, right? David, what can I say? I wish my customer has all the deep pockets that they have for the rebuild application. But like what you mentioned, business cannot wait, right? Are you going to let the existing application run for 6 months to 1 year before you deliver anything that's looking close to what you have? Come on, be realistic. We are in the COVID situation. Things doesn't move that way.
And that's time. Wow. What a great debate. Gentlemen, shake hands, hug it out, right? And that was a great debate there. Lots of compelling arguments, but it's time to go to the judges' scorecards. So we'll ask you, the audience, to decide who is the winner of today's debate. Will it be migration, or will it be, modernization, or will it be rebuild? So let's bring up the poll. And here's your chance to decide who's the winner for today. The question is, do you think you're better off modernizing or rebuilding applications for the cloud? So scan the QR code on your screen to participate, or click in the comment box, the link there, to cast your vote. So while we're tallying the judges' scorecards, a word from our sponsors. And by that, what I actually mean is that it's time for questions from the audience. So we've got one here from Cindy, and Cindy's asking, this one looks like for you, Leong, are there any tools or assessments to help with migration or modernization of apps?
Obvious, there is definitely. I think I think Red Hat has actually moved along this path very nicely, right? They are consolidating all the tools for migration from a container perspective all the way to Java application itself, right? So we do have the tool. If you're looking at Java application, the monolithic JE application, you're trying to move into container, you're trying to move to a lighter framework. We do have the tool called Red Hat Migration Toolkit for application, right? If you're looking at the broader aspect, which I mentioned earlier about assessment, right? You can do assessment. We have the Pathfinder tool for that. In fact, we are actually running all this part of the open community. There's a community that you can find online. It's called conveyor.io, right? That will give you a bit more insights on what are the projects that we're participating in the open community perspective, the tools and the assessments tool that we provide, and the tool for migration that we provide. Hope that answers the question.
Well done, Wai Leong. Don't let your guard down, because we have another question coming your way. This one's from Eileen, and she's asking, can you give an overview of how you would calculate the costs of a modernization project? Or sorry, what is not suitable for a modernization project? What apps are not suitable? Wai Leong?
I think the key thing here is this: when you do the assessments of the app itself, there are times that I must admit may not be suitable, like core application, core banking application. Yes, I've seen customers who have attempted to rebuild the core banking application, but you do need to do the assessment yourself, whether it makes sense or not, because not only the application logic, you need to be aware of the kind of database that it runs on, how do you migrate the data off? So there's a lot of consideration. So there's just some that are not suitable for modernization. Like what Davis had mentioned, maybe you're better off, repurchase, I would say the other R, right? Repurchase a new application for that and do a migration from that perspective, right? But then again, core banking application is not the only application. You have the bank, right? There's so many other applications that have proliferated over the years itself, and there are a lot of candidates that actually can benefit from modernization, right? So
thank you, Wai Leong. All right, and the questions are coming in hard and fast. I've misread them, but this one here goes to David. I think it's time for our final question. It's coming from Karen, and she's asking, can you give an overview, David, of how you calculate the costs of a rebuild project? You have 50 seconds.
Okay, sure. So that's kind of interesting that Wai Leong mentioned two pizza teams before, because that's really the crux of it. So really, a quick 3 to 6 months, two pizza team of sort of 6 people, maybe at 500 a day, an average of kind of 20 mangoes a month would be, around 180 to 360K US dollars plus incidentals. Cheaper countries like Indonesia, you could probably get away with $200 a day for the resources, and that'll kind of wash out at about 72K to 144K. So that's just the services side. Obviously, there could be other aspects of it that need to be addressed, like some platform costs and so on. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, David. And I've just got a notification here that the judge's decision is in and it's final. So let's give one last round of applause for today's contestants there. Okay, so let's bring up the final decision, and we'll find out what today's winner is of the modernized versus rebuilt debate. The winner by split draw, it seems, is that both you can modernize and you can rebuild. So shake hands, gentlemen. Thank you very much. What a great effort. Well, that is about all of the excitement and action that I can handle for one day, so better wrap it up here. At the end of this broadcast, we'll share a link to the feedback form. Let us know how we went today, the good, the bad, the ugly. Tell us what topics you want to hear about in the future. And there's also a chance for you to register your interest for an upcoming webinar between today's combatants, where they'll do a deep dive into the ins and outs of modernize versus rebuild and settle the debate once and for all. We'll also share a landing page to watch the replay of today's bout on demand. And of course, stay tuned next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, where we bring you our second action-packed debate arguing DIY Kubernetes versus supported Kubernetes. On behalf of the contestants and production crew, I'm Paul Wyden from Red Hat Asia Pacific, signing off. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for judging for us. Until next time, keep debating.